Good morning, goeiemorgen, moleni. In order to move forward as a city and a people, we have to remember our past and what led us to this point today. Today, we are a city working towards becoming united in our diversity and overcoming the legacy of our past as we build an inclusive city. The past sought to divide us. Its effects will be felt for many years still to come. But we are not as divided as we were once before. Though we're still seeing our democracy stabilize, we are in many ways a different country from the one that existed 80 years ago. In 1983, an end to racial oppression and the embrace of freedom seemed like almost impossible ideals. In 1983, in response to the forces of history that were going to overwhelm it, the apartheid regime sought a new racial division masked as a constitutional order. The regime established a tricameral parliament and excluded black people. Beyond feeble, it was ultimately a response rooted in arrogance and self-deception. It was truly at that moment that society came together to motivate for change. As a response to the state that would not listen, various members of civil society, political organizations, political religious movements and trade unions joined together to form the United Democratic Front. For almost 10 years, it acted as a unified moral front against waves of oppression and violence. In 1986, it was estimated that members of the UDF accounted for 69% of detainees with known affiliation under the state of emergency. The brutalization would continue and the struggle would test everyone. But the UDF endured. Today we live in a democracy that many sacrifice much for. For many years, the spirit of activism and civil engagement that underpinned the UDF slowly faded away as members were absorbed into other spheres of life. I believe, however, that we are seeing the spark of that same fire again. Civil organizations are becoming prominent once more as they are gathering for victories. Thanks to the part that civil society have played, we have now brought access to antiretrovirals. We have changed proposed draconian state laws, and we are moving towards the socio-economic justice envisioned in our Constitution. We must stoke that fire of activism. The city is already engaging with civil society organizations, and we will continue to do so. The state does not have a monopoly on truth. It must be held to account by its citizens every day, not just every 5 years. We commemorate the UDF at this memorial today. I would also like to thank Premier Helen Zille for initiating this project, and indeed all the artists and other visionaries who have made it a reality. This memorial will act as a permanent call to action for society, reminding us of what can be achieved despite the odds and despite the noise. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Program Director. Waar was Jay? Weet jy waar ek was? Weet jy waar ek was? Dis 'n baie lekker vraag om mee te begin. Waar was Jay? Weet julle waar ek was? Weet julle waar ek was? Ek was hierso. Ek was hierso 28 jaar gelede. Met my inconscription campaign t-shirt. Waar was jy? Ek was hier. Met Ellen Boersak. Ek was hier. Met Trevor Manuel. Ons was hier. Saam om teen apartheid te beklei. Dis waar ek was. Dis waar ek was. En dis so lekker om weer hier vandag te wees. Ek was hier. 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 Waar was julle? Waar was julle? Waar was julle? Ons was hier. Ons was hier. Ons was hier. Ons was hier. Amandla! These are all my songs, guys. This is what brings back the memory. This is what makes me so excited. I can't make a speech when I'm hearing all our old struggle songs that we used to sing together, where we came together to launch the UDF right here. The only thing that makes me sad is that Dr. Boersak had to make the same speech here to say we need all our rights, we need them here, and we need them now. Because those rights are enshrined in our Bill of Rights, and yet some people use their rights and their freedoms to undermine the rights and freedoms of others, as we're seeing here today. And that has to be an absolute tragedy, because that wasn't the spirit of the UDF. I want to address the artists here today, and I want to say you've done a fantastic job. I could never have envisaged something that captured so beautifully the spirit of the time. The iconic UDF logo, beautifully carved in steel, is this? And then above this crumbling edifice of those ghastly apartheid laws. And then the hope that comes from the young artists on the side of this incredible memorial. I remember the really difficult times about fighting apartheid, but sometimes I also get really nostalgic for the spirit of togetherness and what we did. And the hilarity that used to come in the most tense moments. Dr. Boersak made one of his really memorable speeches, of which there were many in this hall at the time. But I don't know if you remember, all you guys that were there, the place was packed. Dr. Boersak mentioned that the people were hanging off the rafters. And the safety people decided it was not safe to continue while people were hanging off the rafters. And they wouldn't come down because they wanted to have pole position and they wanted to see what was going on. And eventually somebody, I think it may have been Cheryl Carolus, but she got up to the front there and she said, "Nou comrades, klim nou af van die rafters sodat ons kan beginne history maak." Onthou julle? En ons het toe history gaan maak. En vandag is ons hier om onsself aan daardie history te herinner. Because who would have said then that in very few years' time we would have negotiations and we would have the spirit of the UDF captured in our magnificent constitution? I think it's really very important for us to understand that without the UDF, South Africa's transition would have been very different indeed. And I have read a lot about the history of South Africa, because people who don't learn from their past are bound to repeat it. And as we all know, the past is not dead and buried. In fact, it is not even past, as Barack Obama so profoundly put it. And we've seen in many of the speeches here how much politicians still often need to divide people on the basis of race to address the challenges we face. That is absolutely contrary to the spirit of the UDF. And we must combine to focus on South Africa's biggest enemies, poverty and unemployment. And we must focus on ensuring that we have the kind of job-creating economic growth that can fulfill the vision of what it means to have all your rights, to have them here and to have them now. We must also understand what it means to have rights and to take responsibility for using the opportunities that flow from those rights. En tensy ons dit doen, gaan ons nooit ergens verder kom nie. I found the Jeremy Seeking's book on the UDF very interesting. Not that I agreed with it all, but I thought it was very interesting. But above all, I found what Gail Gerhardt, the famous historian, said about the UDF and its influence on the ANC was critically important. As Professor Gail Gerhardt wrote, without the UDF, the politics of the contemporary ANC would have been entirely different. And tragically, it is becoming entirely different. I think it is so appropriate for us to be having this fantastic celebration to commemorate the UDF today, because if any spirit needed to be revived, it is the spirit of the UDF. This is totally contrary to the spirit of the UDF. Then we stood for ensuring that everybody's rights were protected. Now only some people's rights may be protected while everybody else's rights are undermined. And so it's tragic that we have to say this, because the spirit of the UDF is at great risk of becoming history. And that is why we're standing up today in front of this fantastic celebratory memorial to say, let us never forget what the UDF actually did stand for. And let us be absolutely sure that that spirit is never allowed to be undermined, because those of us who were really here at the time and throughout all those years of apartheid allow our voices to be smothered. Thank you very much.
I would like to take a moment to invite our speakers today. We're about to proceed to the cutting. The ribbon cutting ceremony. So I'm going to ask the Premier, the Mayor, Councillor Ehrenreich, and Dr. Bussack to come as well, and we're going to be going to my right here, and we'll be cutting the ribbon today. If you guys can join up with me.